All right, hello, SQL Dev DBA here, and happy Saturday. Hope you're all doing very well. I am here to chat about something that I've been working on for another stream, but actually in Spanish. So a while ago, I thought to myself, how can I help folks get access to data maybe they didn't know they could get access to? Usually you'll go on sites like maybe, Kaggle.com. There we go. I had to check that the mic was actually working and that Streamlabs is doing okay, because it doesn't seem to be. It's like as soon as I started the stream, Streamlabs is like, I'm gonna go ahead and crash in every way I can. So I can barely see whether or not Streamlabs is actually even working, even though my Mac is fairly powerful. It seems to not be very happy. So hopefully the stream is coming out well. I have no idea other than like a small iPhone I used to monitor it. But anyway, I wanted to give folks access to be able to download their own data. If they find a site with maybe like an API and they're not super familiar with APIs, I wanted them to be able to access it using very simple tools. Now, for about 12-13 years, I've specialized in a tool called SSIS, which is SQL Server Integration Services. It's a product from Microsoft that allows you to basically pull from various data sources, whether it's SQL Server itself, whether it's CSVs, Oracle, APIs, Salesforce, any ERPs like Dynamics, that sort of stuff. And it allows you to either move the data around, put it into SQL Server, put it into a CSV, put it in whatever destination you want, or transform it while it's in there. So change things around, validate data, whatever you really want to do. But the reality is you don't need all that. It's really good to have. It's really good to have that experience, and I'll make future videos about SSIS because I like to work with it a lot. But I wanted to show you a way that you can download this data from sites that have APIs accessible without having to do a bunch of crazy coding. It's a little bit of code. It is a little bit of code. So if you're not familiar with PowerShell, it's going to give you the ability to get familiar with PowerShell a little bit. PowerShell is available on any Windows machine. Whether you have Microsoft Windows Pro or Home Edition, it's still available to you. And it's really simple. It's a really simple scripting language that allows you to perform commands on Windows, on systems like PowerBI, on networking. I use it to control my Office 365 domain as well. So it is a really powerful language. But it can also be very simple to use, and you can use it for very simple things. Just because it's so powerful doesn't mean you have to use it for crazy powerful stuff. It's actually pretty simple to use. Okay, so before I do that, new setup. Hopefully the switchover works fairly well. I wanted to kind of show a little bit more of the office space I use for streaming. Now this is just my streaming dedicated workspace. My actual workspace where I do most of my work is right over there, where I have a 34-inch ultra-wide monitor over there and two other monitors that are in like not necessarily vertical format like this, but they're actually stacked on top of each other horizontally. And so I do most of my work there. That's where my work laptop is and stuff. But here's where I keep my streaming gear, or my streaming setup. It's a Mac, my Elgato teleprompter, which the camera is right behind there, and it helps me be able to read the chat and look straight at the camera. So that's pretty cool. And then some like old monitor that I've had for like a billion years that I just use for our streaming sessions. So my goal is actually to move all of this, or at least the components that I need to move them to merge with my work setup. So I'll be using the same monitors, or at least one of the same monitors, so that everything's a little bit more condensed, and then I'll have a little bit more free space here where maybe I can just have the laptop on its own. So there's like a mess of wiring that I am scared to touch, because every time I touch it, it'll be like 3 hours of work after I unplug for the first time. So I want to make sure that I am in the right mood before I start merging everything, because this took a while to set up. So all right, so let's take a look at the website that we'll be using. There we go. This right here is qtimes.com, and I'm going to put a link to the website in the chat. It's a very simple one, just http qtimes.com. And I'll be doing a continuation of this stream in Spanish. Right now I'm at like a middle point in Spanish. In the Spanish version of it, I'm at like a middle point where I have all the data, but I just need to work with it in Power BI, and I also need to put it into SQL Server, but I haven't gotten there yet. And while I'm at that sort of middle ground, I wanted to take advantage of that and go through everything in English as well. My plan is really to record dedicated videos without any chat, without any streaming stuff, and just allow you to watch the videos chapter by chapter without chat. But I really do enjoy streaming. I do enjoy any chat whenever I get it, and I just enjoy being live as well. So I wanted to make sure I keep a good balance of the two. Okay, so let's talk about QTimes. QTimes.com is just a website that provides a free service via an API, and the catch is you have to watch advertisements for like Ford F-150s and Botox and stuff. Well, you don't have to watch them, they're just there. But they provide a free API where you can just use it to download data. You can use it to download any data that you need about theme parks and the ride wait times. So that's what I have done, is built basically just simple PowerShell that will allow us to call the API and bring down the data, both about the parks and about the attractions inside those parks and the wait times at those attractions. So to be able to dive in a little bit more, we're going to go to the API page of qtimes.com. And we'll see here two primary calls. One that gives you data about parks, so qtimes.com/parks, and then another one that's qtimes.com/parks/ whatever the park ID, and then QTimes. So they're two separate calls, and they bring in about 4 different types of data sets. But we're going to show how to use PowerShell to kind of call those, compress them, and put them into like a singular file or 2 different files, and then how to schedule that to happen automatically. Because the cool thing about QTimes is that they actually provide this service, and they refresh and update the QTimes every 5 minutes. Now, we're not going to flood it, we're just going to call it once for one part every 10 minutes, and so I'll have data every 10 minutes updating. So you may be wondering, well, how do I explore this data set first without actually having to build on my PowerShell code, just to make sure that it's data that I want, that it's data that I can use? Well, there's a very simple tool, and it's a free tool called Postman. So if you go to postman.com, which I'll go ahead and push that link out as well. Postman.com. This is a free service that allows you to call all sorts of APIs across the internet right from your browser. You don't have to build anything fancy. They have a ton of how-to videos on how to build these, but it's really, really simple. I already have some calls built, but basically all you have to do is enter the address of the API that you're trying to call. So this is qtimes.com/parks.json or JSON, which is exactly what QTimes said to call. It's right here. And when I call it, I'm going to just really quickly hit send. When I call it, what I get is a response of all of the different parks at a particular company. So they have a couple different data sets, and the data sets are multi-node, and that means that there's a hierarchy to these data sets. The first node of that hierarchy is the root level, and that contains just all of the different park groups. So they call them park groups, but in reality, they're kind of just like park companies. Things like Disney, things like Universal, things like Cedar Fair Entertainment Company, that sort of thing. And then inside of those, there's an additional node underneath those that has all of the parks at that group. So this is one. It has Cedar Fair Entertainment Company, for example, and then it has a node called Parks, and you'll see that inside of that node it has one entry per park. So this is California's Great America, it's ID 57 or Park ID 57. The country is United States, the continent is North America. Here's the latitude and longitude, and it also shows you the time zone. And for each park inside this company, it has one entry. And then when you get to the next company, here's the next company that helps. I don't speak French, so I apologize. But we have a park in Belgium, we have a park in Austria, probably in France. There we go. There's a France one. And so the hierarchy is maintained for each company, for each park. There's a record. And so that was probably my first challenge is, okay, I'm going to call this from PowerShell. I need to know how to kind of compress all of these into one record. So I wanted to spit out one record that said, okay, here's Cedar Fair Entertainment Company and California's Great America all in one line. And then one line, it was basically, how do I get one line per park instead of one line per company and then multiple lines per parks. So I wanted one line per park. And to be honest, I use ChatGPT. You should be using it too. I basically just asked ChatGPT, hey, I need to build a PowerShell script that calls this website, gets the API results, and stores them as a PowerShell object. Or I even went as far as to say, and stores them in a CSV. Evascroll, hello. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. I'm gonna do one more of these in Spanish to continue what we've already been working on from the last stream. So that's gonna be later today, probably around 5 or 6 Puerto Rico time, something like that. We'll see. We'll see how lunch goes and stuff like that. But it's great to see you. How are you doing? I hope you're really well on this very hot Saturday. I hope your electricity is okay. It's been pretty crazy the last week or so. But yeah. All right, so basically I wanted, again, one record per park and had the company information already in that line. I didn't want to waste time doing one file pool for the parks and one file for the company. I just wanted one file per park, or one file for all the parks, and have that file contain the company name within it. So I asked ChatGPT. In fact, let's really quickly just go ahead and ask ChatGPT just so you can see the style and the query that I use. We'll go to Bing Chat, right? Chat.bing.com. Evascroll says, assembling a 30 by 50 hanger, like a closet, or like a I think it's like a cabinet, a garage. Oh, like an actual 30 by 50 hanger that in this heat. Oh my gosh. You are my hero, Evascroll. You are my hero. Well done. I hope you stay very, very hydrated. Please stay hydrated. It is crazy out there. You are my absolute hero. I'm sweating just thinking about you doing that. Just that's crazy. That's crazy. But I hope everything goes well with that. I hope you don't have any missing or extra screws or anything like that. I hope everything works out. Wow, that's my hero. All right, so we're just gonna jump into chat.bing.com here we are. What we're gonna do is just ask it for a simple question. Hey, I want to get some data from an API, and I want to export that data into a CSV using PowerShell. Okay, so I need to call an API that returns theme park data. You don't even have to specify theme park data, just returns data, right? So let's just even delete this, that returns data, and export that to a CSV. Can you write a PowerShell script that does this? And then I'm gonna say please. Why? Because when the robots come, they're gonna remember that I was nice to them. If you don't want to say please, that's fine. I want to survive when the robots take over the world. So that's why I say please. You don't have to. It'll probably respond just the same, but I don't know, because I've always asked it please. All right, so here you can see, here's a PowerShell script that executes an API, retrieves the data, and exports it to a CSV. This is your skeleton, right? Technically speaking, we don't know anything about PowerShell anyway. If you're conflicted about whether or not this is cheating, and I've said many times it's not, you would have had to Google this anyway. I have a book, which is a fantastic book. I would highly recommend it to anyone. It's called PowerShell in a Month of Lunches. It's by Meep. The publishing company is called Meep, and it's a fantastic book. And I've been reading it just to familiarize myself with things you can do. They lay it out so that you kind of catch it in 1 hour blocks or 30-minute blocks, depending on your time. But the reality is you would have been Googling this anyway. This is just a quick Google search that's done for you. Imagine you're not paying someone to Google things for you. That's what Bing Chat is. Okay. So it says, hey, here's the API URL that you need to use. You need to make an API request, and it even gives you comments about what to do and how to use it. So it's saying you're going to build a response, and that response is going to be exactly what your API URL is. It's going to basically be the return data that you get back. And we already explored what that data looks like right here in Postman. So it's basically going to say whether or not the response is successful. That you can include or not, that's fine. But, oh, okay. I guess we're gonna quit that. Oh, I pressed the wrong button on my mouse. There we go. Okay, let's try that again. I'm building, and I'm gonna say it completely differently this time. I'm building a PowerShell script that calls an API and exports the returned data set to a CSV. Can you write the script for me again, please? You never know. Those robots, they're gonna take over. So we gotta be nice. All right, so it basically gave me a very similar, if not the same exact one. This one goes as far as, probably because I said please, that it gives me this extra stuff. You know, just be nice. So it actually checks whether or not the call was successful right here. You don't have to include this. I actually don't have this in the script that I'm about to show you, but it's a pretty cool thing to add. And then it says, hey, here's the data. I want to convert the data from JSON into a data object in PowerShell. And then I also want to indicate a path that this CSV will be. So you can put the file name here and also the file path, so you can put it in a specific folder. And then it's just a simple command, export to CSV. Here's the path that I want to export it to, and I want to export this data that we've collected into a PowerShell object. And then it even gives you a message back saying, hey, I'm done exporting the data to a CSV. And if it fails, it says, hey, something went wrong. Evascroll says, after I'm done with the hangar, I'll be continuing with the studies, working with schemas, modules, designing relational databases. That's fantastic. Very cool. I've been meaning to maybe formulate a better, like an example of like a slightly larger database. But the reality is, there's so many good ones out there that it's kind of tough to think of them on their own. Maybe I can go to ChatGPT and ask it for ideas on what sort of databases to build, because that's, I mean, it's what I do for a living. But usually I don't have to really think about what the database needs to look like. Actually I do, but it's mostly like someone will tell me, hey, I have all this data to store, it's coming from this source, and what I do is build a hanger. I build a hanger for it, and build a structure so that the data can flow into my database, and that includes things like tables, stored procedures to push the data back and forth, and then functions to basically modify the data on the fly, and then views for Power BI to access the data, because it's usually, hey, SQLW, yeah, I wanna go ahead and report on this data that I'm suddenly getting a bunch of files from. So usually the end product is to have a Power BI report about it. So that's really cool. As always, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on it, or if I can help at all. Happy to do so, even if I use fake data on my side. I don't have to know what you're working on. It's all good. Okay, so this is an example of a file that we can take. However, I want to show that I already have something built out from, again, a lot of it was from Power BI, or from Bing Chat. I know PowerShell. I know enough to do what I need to accomplish. I use it for a tool called DBATools, which allows you to administer SQL Server very easily. Things like backups, things like copying databases, starting and stopping SQL Server, failover cluster indexes, availability groups, exporting and importing data, which we're actually going to be using here. So I do know PowerShell. I just didn't know a lot about what was entailed here with calling APIs, even though I have used it before to call APIs. But here, ChatGPT is actually teaching me about it, which is pretty cool. Evascroll says, I will. Well, time to put some screws again. I'll see you later. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate you. Best of luck. I hope it all goes well, and I hope you stay cool, and I hope you stay hydrated, because it's crazy out there. So thank you. Thanks so much for stopping by. All right, so our script starts with some global parameters. It's basically the date and time that we are collecting this data. Then we have an API endpoint and headers. So here is the endpoint that we wanted to access, and then we're telling it, hey, we want to deal with JSON, and we want the data to come back in JSON. And then we have the API call. So this is the actual call, and it's storing all the data that we got back in an object called response. We use invoke REST method to call this API. Then here's where I diverted a little bit. I asked ChatGPT, hey, no, I want a specific columns. I want them to be placed in specific places in this CSV. Remember, we had this whole like hierarchy, so I wanted to compress everything into just one line per part. And that's what it's doing here, is it's actually compressing everything. So here we're having the data be written out to a live file and then to a historical file. Now we're using the same exact data, but what I wanted to do was be able to write it to a simple file where I overwrite the file every single time I write to it. I clear it out and I write. And then there's a historical one that I can use for tracking. The main difference between these two, or really the only difference other than the file name, is the command append. Append will just write the data to the bottom of the file every time it runs, whereas without append, it'll just overwrite all of the data. So this one just writes a list of parks. And then we have another one. And what this one does is gets a list of theme parks. So you can see right here that there's an object called custom data. That's an object that I made, again, using ChatGPT's help. And this is what compresses everything. It grabs the group ID, pushes it to the object, but then also grabs information about the park, which sits at a sort of lower level. Let's take a quick look again at what that data looks like. It'll grab this information here first, and then it'll grab this information and put it all on one line instead of multiple lines. And then it writes the data. You'll notice here I have commented out, just write the data to the screen, because technically speaking, you can do that as well. And then here, this custom data, I'm also writing it to a file called theme park list and theme park list history. That's just in case they add new theme parks or they remove theme parks. I want to have always the latest one. But the history file allows me to track, like, I know they had this theme park on their website, a week ago. I'll be able to tell exactly when that was. Now, that's great for the list of theme parks, but some more information that's available is queue times. And so this is the call for queue times. It's the same thing, except it's parks, and then there's a number here, and then it's queue times.json. Now the number represents the park ID, not the company ID. So not this ID here, the park ID. Okay, so park ID 6 is the Magic Kingdom, and that's why I have it calling park ID 6, is because Magic Kingdom is local to me. It's data that I know, and so it was fairly easy for me to see whether or not I was getting the right data. I don't know a lot about other theme parks. I haven't been to very many. I just happen to live close to probably the most famous ones in the world. So here's what the data looks like when you pull it for theme park 6, which is the Magic Kingdom. We have Swiss Family Treehouse, we have Magic Carpets of Aladdin, and if we pull this right now, we're gonna go ahead and send the command right now. We can see Dumbo, the flying elephant. The wait time is 10 minutes. It's a small world. The wait time is 25 minutes. My favorite ride in Magic Kingdom that my daughter refuses to ride with me is Space Mountain. Oh, and you can see here that it actually has the lands as well. So you can see this is Frontierland. We're gonna look for Tomorrowland. Where is it? Tomorrowland. Buzz Lightyear is at 35 minutes. That's not bad. Tomorrowland Speedway, not a fan. And I don't know why they haven't converted Tomorrowland Speedway to electric cars. It only makes sense is Tomorrowland. Please do it. I know no one from Disney is watching, because you guys have lives, but please give us electric cars in Tomorrowland Speedway. Anyway, where is Tron Light Cycles at 0? That's a special one, and let's get to that in a second. We can see Carousel Progress is at 5. That's 5 minutes to get air conditioning and 20-minute sleep or nap, so that's pretty cool. Well, where is Space Mountain? Space Mountain is at 40 minutes right now. Let's talk about Tron. Why is it at 0 minutes? We all know that Tron has a crazy wait time. So what's going on? Well, it's the queue system. The queue system that Tron has makes it so that there is no wait time, right? You go into the app, you sign up for the queue, and that's when you actually get put in the wait time. So there's no consistent wait time that queuetimes.com can report on. All it is just a queue system. So instead of putting nothing, so things error out, they just put 0. So anytime you see 0, it's either based on a queue system, or it's a show or a parade. So at the very top here, you can see A Pirate's Adventure, Treasures of the Seven Seas. That's a show. It's not gonna have any wait time. 0 minutes. Let's see if we can find another show. Tiki Room's a show, but it's technically has a wait time. It's a Small World. Enchanted Bells with Tales with Belle. That's fine too. Okay, this one's still a show. Actually, it's not a show. It's a ride with a wait time, so that's why it has 45 minutes. Let's see if we can find any other zeros. Come on, give me a 0. Splash Mountain. That one's special. Why? Because they're in cast preview. Again, they have a queue system right now. There is no line for Splash Mountain. I mean, I'm sure there is a line, but you get told on the app how long the wait time is. It's different for different groups of people. There's no global wait time. That's why you see 0. Okay, so let's walk through the PowerShell a little bit of how we got that data downloaded. The first thing I do is I establish which park ID I want to run this for. So park 6 is Magic Kingdom. Collection datetime is something that we already discussed in our last one, where it's just a timestamp of right now. Then we have the URL, which is right here. And you can see that the URL is something that I constructed using the park ID, right? So this is the standard URL with the parks. Then I stuffed the 6 in there dynamically, and then I add the other part of it, which is static. It's a /qtimes.json. Same deal. We're working with JSON data. Now we have a response that comes back in the same exact way. We want to use the invoke REST method to call the API and bring the data back down. ElementFuture, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining. ElementFuture says, imagine using data analysis to optimize a speed run in Roller Coaster Tycoon. Also, hi, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining. It was great catching your last stream where you were testing out, I think it was Test Drive Ultimate and like some jewel, platinum or ruby or something like that. I can't remember, but that was really cool to see. I was playing around with stream elements. Yeah, Test Drive. ElementFuture says Test Drive. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I was playing around with stream elements yesterday, actually last night, because I'm going to be setting up a pedal cam for my racing rig. The camera just looks at the pedal, and I want to be able to overlay race element so that we can see my input as I'm actually doing the driving. So huge thanks to you for your product. Let's do a quick shout out here for ElementFuture. Let's see if my bots work. There we go. Okay. Yeah, check out ElementFuture streams. ElementFuture says have fun with it. I'm hoping I can pressure you into maybe doing some streams yourself to see if the rest of us can learn all the magic that you do. But yeah, thank you. But yeah, Roller Coaster Tycoon, I can't believe. Oh yeah, it's Test Drive Ultimate Unlimited Solar Crown. That's what it was. Roller Coaster Tycoon, I have not played that in such a long time. My daughter's super into The Sims 4 right now, so that's the closest we've come to it. But wow, I used to do some crazy things in Roller Coaster Tycoon. Yeah, I used to test the laws of physics a lot. Let's just say that. Okay, so the response is coming back here with all the data that we need, but you can see here that I built another custom object, and that custom object takes all the lands and combines it with the rides. So it says here's the lands, here's the rides, let's combine everything into one line. And then same deal here. I write the data once to a file, and then I write the data again to a file, a different file. As you can see, this one is called _history. Now, this first one writes live data only. Why can't I just use the historical file for everything, for all my reporting, right? Why am I using two files? Well, it's kind of a sort of a habit. My job as a database administrator, as a data analyst, data architect, whatever you want to call me, is to make sure that the reporting can happen as quickly as possible, especially when it comes to something that allows you to make decisions. Okay, so decisions are really important. Let's talk about theme park wait times. When I go to Disney, when I go to Magic Kingdom, when I go every weekend, or when I go to Epcot or Magic Kingdom or Hollywood Studios, whichever one I go to every weekend, what we do is we try to only go to the rides that are under like 20 minutes. And so I need the data to be returned to my phone as quickly as possible so I can make the decision of whether or not I'm going to walk all the way across the park to try to catch this ride. I also want to look at parades. I want to look at shows. And whenever those shows are happening, I want to go and try to get the most I can or the most I can from the rides, because I know people are watching the shows. So that helps me make decisions, right? It helps me determine whether I need to go to a ride or whether or not I'm going to have to wait until next weekend for it. And so writing it to 2 files allows me to keep historical data so that I can analyze trends, but also be able to provide the latest data very quickly, because small files equal faster loading time. We all know that. So here we can see that I write the live data first, and then I write the historical data to a file. Now, how do I get this automatically, right? Because I'm not going to be sitting here just pressing play. If I press play right now, it would actually take the action, but I'm not going to. And if you want this code, please feel free to reach out to me, admin@sqldevdba.com. I'll put my email. I'm not going to put my email in chat, but admin@sqldevdba, just in case the bots, you never know. Admin@sqldevdba.com, or go to my website sqldevdba.com and fill out the contact form, and I'll email you all of the PowerShell code. I have no intention of selling it, so if you want it, please let me know, and I'll send it over to you. So I'm not going to sit here and press play all the time, and I also don't want to pay for some expensive scheduling app. It just so happens that all of us have an internal scheduling application built right into Windows. It's called the Windows Tasks Scheduler, and I'm sure a lot of you have already used it if you're watching this, but just in case you haven't, if you're just learning about data, you just go to the start menu and you open the Task Scheduler. Now, I happen to already have it open because my machine is very slow, because it takes a while to load, but this is the screen that you're going to be met with. I happen to have one already built, but you can easily either ask ChatGPT or just follow the instructions to create a basic task or a task. And all this task does, I'm going to go ahead and double click on it, and then right here it'll show up in the grid. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click properties, and you can see right here all of my screens. Here I have the name, which is run theme park queue data export. I try to make my names as descriptive as possible so that when I'm looking to see what's breaking my machine right now, I know exactly what's going on and whether or not I need to stop it. The triggers, you just create a schedule. Here I have 11 a.m. I started this on June 2nd, and then after it's triggered, it repeats every 10 minutes, and I have this set to expire on December 31st of this year. The actions, that's going to be really simple as well. It just opens PowerShell exe, and then it calls a PowerShell PS1 file. Now, what's a PowerShell PS1 file? All you do is hit save here, and it saves as a PS1 file. As long as this works when you press play one time, you can go ahead and just schedule it. Maybe you want to run it a couple times first to make sure it works repeatedly, but then all you have to do is schedule it in Task Scheduler. So here we have PowerShell.exe, and there's the file, just a direct file, and it'll keep running it. I don't really use any conditions except for, hey, I only want to run this all the time if it's on battery, or if it's on AC power, if it's plugged in. If you have a laptop, that's really important. I happen to have just a little PC, a micro PC for $150 on Amazon, so I just let it run all the time. And then all you have to do is just click OK. I'm going to click cancel because I don't want it to mess up, and it'll just start running, and it'll keep running until it expires or you turn it off. And what's the result? Well, if you look at the PowerShell script, it says to create a file right here, theme park output, theme park queue list. Let's take a look at those. I actually have them open already. Here's one of them, which is the group list. You can see that it has carriage returns and line feeds at the end. You won't actually see those. I decided to use pipes because I find commas in CSVs to be a little bit messy. If something has a comma in the value, like if there's a city and state value put together, it's city comma state, or province, city comma province, and that usually messes up the CSV if you don't import it right. So I've started to try to just use pipes in my demonstrations now, so it's a little bit easier. How do I get the pipe to do it, or how do I get it to show the pipe? Here, by default, the delimiter command is set to comma. If you want to change it to anything else, to a pipe, to a tilde, to whatever you want, something uncommon, please make sure it's something very uncommon, then you just put it right here. That's it. Rod 720 TV, yo, I just tuned in. What is this exactly? Hey, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining. I followed you when we were together in the LAS Curry stream. So it's great to see you over here. Thanks for joining. Let me do a quick shout out for you here, Rod. 720 TV. There we go. So Rod asks, what is this? That's a great question. Basically, what I do is teach data analysis and databases and data architecture. Rod 720 said, big ups, my dude. Yeah, thank you, man. So basically what I do is teach database analysis, data analysis, and I let you use data from all sorts of different sources using a tool called powerBI, or really any reporting tool that you want to analyze different trends. So I make things like dashboards, reporting dashboards that you see on websites, stuff like that. That's what I do for a living. And so I wanted to take the opportunity using Twitch or using YouTube to share my knowledge with anyone who's willing to watch and wants to learn about data analysis, just in case you want to change a career, or just in case you want to upskill yourself, or just in case you want to make fun of me and tell me I'm doing something wrong. That's cool too. That's what I'm here for. As long as it's entertaining. So if you want to check out some of my projects, I have a couple of my projects on SQLDevDBA.com. I'll post up a link here, devdba.com. If you go to the let's see here, if you go to the Power BI demo section at the top right, you'll be able to actually interact with some of the reports I make. I'm a big Formula One fan. I'm a big sim racing fan. That's actually something else that I stream, is I have a whole sim racing rig set up. And so I do sim racing, and then I actually take the telemetry data from my sim races and I make reports from it as well. So I have YouTube videos on how to do all sorts of stuff like that. I have sim racing telemetry reports. This is a report here, for example, that I used to determine what car was better than the Porsche 911 that I used to use all the time. And what I found was I'm terrible at sim racing. That's pretty much it. All the cars were pretty consistent, but I was terrible at sim racing, which makes me want to do it even more, because I get to stream it and you get to make fun of me for it. ElementFuture says, oh nice, we can even interact with it. Absolutely you can. It's a service that Power BI provides for free, and I teach you how to do it in all of my other videos as well. I teach you how to make the reports from scratch. I try to emulate Bob Ross kind of as much as possible, as far as like, hey, let's start with a blank slate and let's take it all the way to the finish. And yeah, that's what you get here. You can interact with the reports and just see how terrible my lap times are. So here I tested, I think, like 10 cars. You can see the BMW M4, the Aston Martin Vantage, the Lambo Huracan, the Bentley Continental. And what I found at the very end was I really liked the Ferrari and how it felt, but I found at the very end the Porsche 992, which is the newer generation of the 911. I tried that and immediately blew away the lap time, the fastest lap time that I had set in the other one. So it just basically, I'm a glutton for punishment, because the Porsche 911 is known as one of the most difficult cars to drive in sim racing because of the rear engine setup, and the physics are all weird. But yeah, one of the things I tried earlier this year is streaming myself sim racing and then immediately taking the data and building reports like this. So yeah, I haven't found a better car than the Porsche, unfortunately. But another thing I do is I stream in Spanish, and so one of the things I started doing in the beginning of this year as well is streaming in Spanish using data from Puerto Rico only. And so I wanted to show students in Puerto Rico that there are data sets that they can use to make reports and have it be considered experience. If they're looking to graduate soon, or they're just starting their data careers, they can use my examples to build reports and gain experience, so that when they get to their job interviews or they try to apply for jobs, they already have the experience needed. They already have like muscle memory of how to do things. Because something I do in my interviews when I interview people, because I'm a manager of a team, a data team, is I put them right to work. I say, show me that you can do this, and if you can either ride the bicycle or you can't, and it's going to be pretty obvious in the beginning. So even my daughter's in here at the very bottom. You can see one of her Roblox dashboards. I made her do this if she wanted some Robux to spend, so she was able to build this report. So it just goes to show, I mean, my daughter's 10, or she was 10 when she built it, she's 11 now, but it just goes to show that really, if this is something that interests you, she's very good, but she's also brand new to this, and she was able to do this report in about an hour or so, I would say. And this is, there's no easy way to put this. This is a career that pays really well, especially at entry level, and the progression is very quick. And if it is something that interests you, I'm not the only channel, obviously, but there's lots of resources out there, including Microsoft Learn. It's completely free. I try to provide as much as I can completely free as well. That'll allow you to kind of dive into this career path if it's something that interests you. All right, so I know you asked just a simple question and I took 10 minutes to answer it, so I apologize, but that's just something I do. I tend to babble, so you can always stop me whenever you got too much in there. So what are we doing right now? Right now we're just taking theme park data. So there's a website called qtimes.com, and the sole purpose is just to allow anyone to access all the theme park wait times worldwide. So I think it has like 130 different theme parks, and it returns a data set that has theme park ride names, their locations, and their current wait times, if they're open, and whether or not they're open. So I'm going through a process where I'm downloading that data automatically, and then I'm using that data to create reports in Power BI, just like the ones that you see. Rod720 says, no problem, this is cool as heck. You're teaching people how to be more successful. Yeah, I appreciate you. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I got to the point where I realized that I know enough to be able to teach the next generation of programmers, of data analysts, and maybe be able to help folks out and allow them to dive into a career that they didn't even know they wanted to dive into. And apparently watching Sephora commercials is what I do too. But yeah, these type of ads is something that allows this website, which costs money to run, it allows them to run it for free and provide the service for free. So the cool thing is that you can use ChatGPT to help you out. I used ChatGPT earlier in this video, and I asked it, hey, I need to write a PowerShell script to download this data automatically. What do I do? How do I write that script? And it basically wrote it for me. I did some copying and pasting and some modification as well. And turns out we have a file. So here's the file for all of the parks. You can see each park has an identifier as well, or these are actually companies. Let's take a look at the queue times one as well. So here are the resulting files. As you remember, I have one that's called the queue list. That's a live file. It updates itself every 10 minutes automatically with the latest data. And this one's a history. You can see right here on the right, this one is 1,000 times bigger than this one. This one just has the latest data and that's it. This one has all of the data I've been collecting every 10 minutes for like the last 2 weeks now. So let's take a look at these files. To do that, I don't want to open this very file. What I want to do is make a copy of it so I can interact with that copy instead, because remember, we still have a process running in the background every 10 minutes that's giving us this data. I don't want to mess with that. I don't want to cause any errors. So all I have to do is copy this one and paste it, and it'll paste a copy of it. That copy is what I'm going to open. So I'm going to right click on that and take a water break. and then I'll edit it with Notepad++. If you don't have Notepad++, you could get it for free, or you could just hit edit here in Notepad and it'll edit it in the Notepad which everyone has on their computer. If you hit edit with Notepad++, you will see, or really any edit, you will see. And again, I'm just calling this from the Magic Kingdom in Orlando, no other park, but you can call it for all the other parks that you want. There's 125 different parks. Rod says, I think I like this analytics stuff. I will have to check it. I will have to check out some more of your stuff. This is over my head right now. Yeah, don't worry about it. But I'll be visiting your website. Where do I start as a beginner? Honestly, first of all, I appreciate it, and I'm glad you find it really interesting. The realities, you start, if I would recommend anything, you start by going to data collection sites like Kaggle. I'm gonna go to it right now and post a link to it, but you start going to Kaggle.com. So let's get the link in there in the chat for you. Kaggle.com, and then let's go to Kaggle ourselves here on this site, Kaggle.com. Basically, you start out with something that you really like. Rod says, I think like SQL Dev DBA is doing is just using a public data set. Oh, it says ElementFuture. Yeah, I'm just using a public data set, but the reality is I want you to start with data that you like. The last thing I want you to do is, look at some financial data that you may not like. Websites like Kaggle, let's say you're into basketball, or Rod, I know you from LAS Curry's stream. He plays a lot of Call of Duty in that stream, right? Let's see if we can find something on Call of Duty. Extensive data pre-processing on Call of Duty World Championship data set. We see, as far as data sets go, if we filter it by CSV, which is the most common way to actually grab data and put it into tools like powerBI, which is Make My Reports. Here's Call of Duty Player Skills. Here's Call of Duty World League Championship, Call of Duty Reviews. So if something that interests you is like Call of Duty or music or basketball or baseball, you can search the subject that you want, because it'll get you excited about the data. You have knowledge about the data, so you can tell whether or not you're displaying something correctly. That's where I would start, is first going and getting data sets that you like, and then after that you can choose the tool that you want to use to analyze and visualize this data. I prefer powerBI. It's what I've been making a living on for the past 7 or 8 years since it came out. Before that, I used more complex and harder to use and less user-friendly tools. powerBI, I think, does the really good mix of being able to be really good for beginners and really good for advanced folks as well. And so powerbi.com is where you can download powerBI desktop. Let's go to powerbi.com. Actually, no, let's just Google powerBI desktop. So if you go to powerbi.com right here, let me post up the link for you. powerbi.com. Rod says, one question before I go, how can I use this stuff to start a courier service? Ooh, okay. So like if you're trying to analyze what areas you should what areas you should be servicing, you can take geographical data from Kaggle. Kaggle has all sorts of data, right? It has all sorts of data. You can take geographical data from Kaggle, find metropolitan areas that are close to you, find how many businesses there are, find how many homes there are. So you can kind of cater your business to like, okay, I'd rather favor businesses instead of residential stuff, just because there's so many more businesses. The businesses are very high value companies. You can also use it to do things like maps, right? You saw in my demos on SQLDevDBA.com, I use maps, and as long as you get the geographical information for them, you can display them right on maps, build some heat maps in there as well. I've done videos on how to do that stuff, and you can really decide what areas you want to cover, and see whether or not you need to drive a little bit before you can make some good money. So yeah, it's really up to you and how you want to use it. I would always start by trying to come up with a problem that you're trying to solve, a question that you're trying to answer. That's actually my job, is to provide answers to questions maybe you didn't even know you had to my company. But Bing Chat and ChatGPT are really good for that too, like asking what sort of questions you need to answer and then doing that with data analysis. So I hope that answers your question, but you can feel free to reach out to me here on Twitch with Whispers, with on SQLDevDBA.com. My email is admin@SQLDevDBA.com. Let me see if I can do my socials as well. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, YouTube again apparently, and even Twitter, which I really don't open very much, but it is there. So hopefully, yeah, I'm glad this is interesting for you. I have plenty of other videos of how to start to finish on everything, where you can build a report at the very end. You'll have a report just like the ones that I built, and all with free tools. It's all free. Don't pay for this training unless the company you work for, is paying for it. That's the only time I would pay for that training, if it's not coming out of your pocket. So hopefully that helps. Rod says, thank you for the info. I'll be back to learn. How often do you stream? Honestly, it's a little bit sporadic, and you're welcome, of course. It's a little bit sporadic. I stream whenever my daughter doesn't want to either watch a Harry Potter movie or play Hogwarts Legacy or go to Disney. I try to I'm trying to follow LAS Curry's advice and come up with a consistent schedule, and I'm having to face the fact that if I can't do that, maybe I should switch to content, because he says that whenever your audience is available, that's when your content should be available. And for streaming, you should be pretty consistent. So I'm trying to stick to that mindset. I'm trying to also just stream whenever I can. But I understand that, it's a bit of a gamble when you do that. So Rod says, scheduling is hard with the family. Absolutely. And I want to make sure that I'm there for my daughter whenever she, wants to hang out, while I'm still kind of cool. I know I'm just cool because I pay for her stuff, but I also want to make sure I'm available for her and chat and play games and watch movies and stuff. ElementFuture says, I think the idea of also uploading the streams to YouTube is something to keep. Yeah. I've been so here's the thing, is that my videos are so long that I have to take the time out to edit them a little bit, and also to put chapters, and sometimes I just don't have the energy. I'm trying to work on how to schedule my time so I treat it like work, but it's just my job itself is really, really demanding. So sometimes I just want to do some sim racing or chill with my daughter and play games. So I'm trying to get into, I have like 5 videos, maybe 10 that I need to upload to YouTube, and I still haven't had the opportunity to do so. So I'm gonna try to find some time. I appreciate both of you, because you're giving me the motivation to take that a lot more seriously, and to just get it done, right? It's all about just getting it done. So yeah, hopefully I can upload a lot more YouTube videos, especially cuts of streams like this, and just be available for anyone whenever they need it, especially across time zones, right? ElementFuture, I know you're across a very, very far time zone from the one I am on, so I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you too, Rod. Thanks for being here. All right, so yeah, Power BI. First, let's hop over to our data set. Here's our data set right here. Is one record per ride. It shows whether it's open. It shows the timestamp of when the data's from and when I pulled it as well, and shows the number of minutes that to wait. Rod 720 says, hey, I'm out, but this was so refreshing. I'll see you soon. Take care. On my way to Kaggle, and I will subscribe to YouTube. Thank you, Rod. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the subscription to YouTube. I hope my content is educational and a little bit fun. If you have any suggestions for me on data sets you want me to tackle and demo for you, I'm happy to jump into any sort of data sets. If you have any suggestions on different style of data that you like to see, or just suggestions in general, I'm happy to take them. Hopefully I can make some good content for you there. Thank you, Rod. I hope you have a wonderful Saturday and a wonderful weekend. and a great Father's Day. All right, so we have 1 record per ride, 35 minutes for Ariel at the grotto. But what's going on here? Look how long this data set is. Rod says sure. Thank you so much. BownerSoup, BownerSoup, how you doing? It's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining. BownerSoup says, how does your append see what files to use? I've been using R to keep a history log by reading the file and appending new data and writing the updated file log. That's a fantastic question. Let's hop over to PowerShell. Right here is the magic. I keep 1 file for live only. That's the latest data and it always overwrites. And then I keep 1 file for history, and that one has a -append. See, PowerShell is so simple that all you have to do is hit -append, and it's like, okay, I guess you want to append. I'm fascinated by R. I'm fascinated by Python. I just haven't had a need yet that PowerShell hasn't been able to solve very quickly, and I want to diversify, but the reality is with my job I have very little time to actually do that. And what I want to do instead, I had a decision to make. I either shared my knowledge with others or I started learning more stuff like R, like Python, and I chose to just share what knowledge I know, and hopefully that helps me learn a little bit more. Probably longer answer than you were looking for, but it's all right here. BownerSoup is all here. -append will tell the file, the history file. Notice how the file names are different too. I have 1 file here and 1 file here. It tells the history file, hey, I want you to append this to the very bottom, and my delimiter is a pipe delimiter. So what this does is it just keeps adding. You can see right now it's 2 o'clock. It's 2:08 here my time, and at 2 o'clock was the last write. In about 2 more minutes, it's gonna write a brand new file right here. Or sorry, not a brand new file. It's just gonna add here, but this file here is gonna be overwritten at 2:10. So that's exactly how I keep the history, is just keep 2 separate files, one with the live data only, and it always gets overwritten, and a history file where I use -append. So hope that helps. Okay, so we have this file. We talked about the file. We talked about how to automate it using Windows Task Scheduler. All these are free tools. I don't want you spending any money to learn this. I don't want you spending any money to collect this data. Huge thanks to qtimes.com, of course, for providing the data for us. But the reality is you can contact any API, any website that has an API that's accessible by the public. You can use the same exact process for it. So the next thing I want to do is just talk about the architecture a little bit. I know I'm just as excited as you are to get into this, which is the reporting side, right? Let me quickly refresh this to see if I can get any data to come back. Let's see. And I say quickly, but this little computer I have that runs Power BI is not the quickest thing ever. So yeah, it looks like it's not even loading. Oh, there it is. It just switched as soon as I switched over. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just hit refresh. And what it's going to do is load the latest data that I collected at like 2 p.m. You'll see the last time I refreshed this was the 8th of June. It's going to say June 15th now after it's done refreshing. So let's watch it do its thing. It's usually extremely fast, but this computer itself is not very fast. And Power BI just quit, I think, is what happened. Oh no, there it is. There I go, saying bad things about Power BI when it was just trying to do the work. That's not very nice. I should be nicer to Power BI. Pays my bills. All right, so we're just gonna let it do its thing. In the meantime, we're gonna hop over to Lucidchart. Lucidchart is where I do all my diagramming for work and for projects like this. You can see that I have a diagram here already. This is the Spanish version of this architecture that I use. So one of the things I always try to do is come up with a game plan, and here's the architecture, here's the game plan that I have for this project. So what we're going to do is actually talk about this and rebuild it at the same time, so that you get an idea of exactly what steps I do, and where I can expand. Because the cool thing about these diagrams is they allow me to see pockets of opportunity for things I want to do. Let's see, is this thing done updating? We're going to give it one more shot and then we will oh, yep, it's done. Okay, let's watch it refresh. You can see the little spinny icons here, or maybe you can't because the resolution might not be as good, but hopefully you can. And let's watch it update. It should be updating as of 2:10 p.m. Magic Kingdom time, I guess. It's usually not this slow, and as you can see from my reports on my website, they're not this slow. It's just building them for you on this demo is sometimes not the quickest thing ever. Let's see. There we go. All right. So nope, that's not the latest time. It says 6/9 at 12:25 p.m. Oh, I know why. It's using a different file, which is okay. Okay, so let's just look at this as if it was the latest file. I just have to switch some data around because I decided to make a slightly different file instead. So basically what we see here is all of the different rides that are the quickest ones, the ones we can hop onto right now. Prince Charming Regal Carousel, not a huge fan, but hey, 5 minutes if you got little kids. Everything here is under 10 minutes, it seems. 10 minutes or under. I wanted the top 10 so I know exactly which ones I can hop onto right now. And then here we have a full list of wait times per ride. As you can see, is red when it's a high wait time, is green when it's not, so that your eyes can be drawn to it immediately. This was a very raw file, right? It doesn't have a lot of good formatting like my other reports do. It was meant to be very simple so that I could explore the data, and that's why you see here. Okay, so now that loaded, and we'll fix the whole not June 15th data thing in a second, but I want to get back to the architecture because I think that's very important of the planning phase, and I think it's very important for anyone who's looking to start this to learn, is the overview, the high level of how to properly plan this out and how to properly execute it. So what we're going to do first is copy the visual for the swim lanes, what's called the swim lanes, which is just this right here. The swim lanes are a project management concept that allows you to basically segment things out into different areas, different parts of the process, right? Like a manufacturing, where they take the mold of something and then they use the mold to create whatever part from either plastic or metal, and then they package it and then they distribute it. So those are different swim lanes of the process. So we're gonna zoom in a little bit here, and the first part of it is going to be collection of data. I'm just going to translate everything from when I did it in Spanish. Here we have automation. Here we have archiving, and we have visualization. So these are all different parts of the process, but all of them need to happen for this project to be successful. The first thing I'm going to do is take these three and put them in the collection and the data collection swim lane. So here they are. We go to qtimes.com and we're going to draw an arrow from qtimes.com, and here we are going to download the park data. After that, we will download the wait times, one file for each attraction. Download the wait times, one file for each, or one row for each attraction. All right, now the automation lane. I'm using PowerShell, and here on the left side I try to have a quick icon or banner or image to show what tool this involves, what's the end goal, what am I looking to do, just so that anyone who's looking at this quickly can see what I'm on about and see what part they need to focus on. All right, so I'm going to copy the PowerShell icon and then probably all these as well. just so we can have them all on the other side and I don't have to keep going back and forth. Okay, so we're using PowerShell, and we're gonna take the API and JSON data. We're gonna convert the API and JSON to a CSV. Okay, convert API JSON data to CSV for the parks data. There we go. And then we're going to convert it as well for the attraction data. Convert API JSON data to CSV for attractions. This is probably the not so fun part, but this is a really important part of the process for me as an architect, because I have to architect these solutions, and it's kind of like a measure twice, cut once thing, except diagram once, repeat less. I don't know, that phrase didn't really work out the way I was intending it to. But yes, it's very good idea. It's a very good idea to make sure that you have your diagrams and all that stuff in place. Rod says, hey, I just visited your YouTube, man. You and me have the same problem, not enough content. You should set up your broadcast to go live on YouTube. It can auto upload your lives. I just did it last week and now I need to stream more. I have a hard enough time keeping my computer like being okay with just Twitch. And honestly, the audience I know is a lot bigger on YouTube, because I get a lot more views on YouTube than I do Twitch. You know, Twitch is like a niche kind of platform, or niche-ish, and I know the audience is gonna be way bigger on YouTube. I'm trying to work out in like a controlled environment. I'm trying to work out like the style that I want, because I keep just trying new things. And I like Twitch because the audience is a bit smaller. It's folks that are doing the same thing you are. With YouTube, you're kind of like standing in front of the world, I feel, with YouTube. And in Twitch, you're kind of standing in front of your peers and doing that. I think I need a push. And maybe you just gave it to me. I might try a really quick session that I have planned out completely on Twitch. I usually just take my Twitch videos and just straight up export them over to YouTube. I use Streamlabs, which I know is a huge mistake. I got it when I first Rod asked, do you use OBS? I have OBS Studio. I use Streamlabs, and I am not a fan of Streamlabs at all. Like, don't mistake my using Streamlabs for being a fan. It's just I have so much already set up in Streamlabs that it's been hard to make the switch over to OBS for everything. But maybe I just need to light a fire in on the Streamlabs part and just go over to OBS and just lock it in, because Streamlabs is, I think you probably share my sentiment with it. Rad says, do you watch Nutty? Yeah, I think I do. The dude with long hair, is that who you're talking about? I think I follow him on Twitch. He always does like how-tos. He's always doing like some update to OBS, I think, right? Is that him? If so, yeah, I've seen a lot of his stuff, and he makes me want to try it, or, take the leap over. Rod says his tutorials are the easiest to follow. I think if that's who you're talking about is the person I'm thinking of. I agree. I love watching his live stuff, and yeah, I got it. Yep, same guy. Rod says the same guy. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna watch more of his actual like YouTube content, because the only time I've really seen him is on Twitch itself. So I'm gonna check him out. Thank you for the reminder there, to check out his stuff. Yeah, I agree. My YouTube content is just like replays, basically, right? It's replays of this stuff, and I've thought about going live on YouTube at the same time as I go live on Twitch. Just hasn't happened. I haven't again, I try to do these a little bit more chill, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that big old audience and having to keep up with 2 chats. But I think OBS even does, like, you know, it indicates whether it's coming from YouTube or coming from Twitch. I have a peer in the database community who I've used all his stuff for like 12 years now. His name is Andy Leonard, and he streams on Twitch, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn at the same time. So I might follow his footsteps, or maybe just send him a quick email to see what his thoughts are on it as well, because it is something I could probably stream on LinkedIn, considering the content that I do, educational and stuff. But again, I'm just overwhelmed, I think, by YouTube, so I try to keep it on Twitch. But hey, maybe this is a sign to go. So I appreciate the suggestion. That's a great idea, and I might try it for like a really short stream, like a 30-minute one, to see. Maybe vertical too. That's something I've been thinking of. But you know what? Maybe I can go live on YouTube for sim racing instead of this stuff here. Maybe I could just do sim racing on YouTube as well. It's a lot to think about. I appreciate you. Okay, so the next step is going to be converting the API JSON data to CSV. We're gonna make a connection here to the attractions as well, because we want to do the same step for the attractions and the parks. We're gonna make one connection from the parks data right here, and one connection from the parks data to right here. Rod says, you got it. Okay, later, take care. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the suggestions. I appreciate you hanging out. The audience always makes the stream, so the chat always makes the stream, so I appreciate you. Okay, so we're gonna name the files. This is gonna be archive parks and archive park history.csv. And let's put this on a new line like that. We'll do archive parks.csv is what we want to name the file. You don't have to get too technical in these diagrams. It's not necessary, but I try to include as much as I can of the technical side, just so I'm not left wondering like what I should do later on. You don't have to get absolutely technical. There's no need to decide on what your file should be called right here. It's not necessary at all, but I like to do a little bit of it just so I'm specific enough. So I'll archive, let me zoom in here so it's easier to see. Archive attractions.csv, and I'm gonna archive attractions history.csv. Okay, there we go. All right, so what do we have so far? We have the call to queue times, download the park data. Then we use PowerShell to convert that data that we got into CSVs. And that produces the files that are in purple. So then, let's go back to our Spanish one. Here are our files and the file system. We want to indicate here that we want to save these as files. So we're going to do that. Attractions.csv for the attractions and parks.csv for the parks. And then the last thing is showing the data in Power BI. So let's paste it right here. And then here we say use archive files for Power BI reports. Okay, and I think we're done with the visual. Oh, maybe if it doesn't go outside the lines here, we're done. There we go. All right, so there's the visual right there. It shows the entire process, and technically speaking, at this point I would be able to present this project to the rest of my team or my superiors to say, okay, here's the plan I have. We're going to take the times from qtimes.com. We're going to save them using PowerShell. We're going to save them to CSV files, and then we'll use that CSV file or those CSV files in the Power BI reports. So it shows exactly what the files are going to be called, just in case there's detail. And that means that I get to use the same diagram for my superiors as well as my team or myself. I can use this as a map on what I need to do. I can use it to assign tasks to different people, like, hey, you take the first part, I'll take the third one, this other person's going to take the second part with PowerShell because they're very good at it, that sort of thing. We can divide and conquer. Or if you're working alone like I am, you can just say, for this hour I'm going to work on this, for this hour I'm going to work on that. Okay, so we have our diagram. You may have noticed there's some extra content here on the far right. This is an entity relationship diagram. It's what I use to kind of map out the data sets that I get. So here we can see that we get one data set for park groups, which has an ID, a name, and a park, or it has a list of parks. And then in this list of parks, I have the park ID, the park name, the country, the continent, latitude, longitude, and time zone. I have the lands, which have the land ID, the land name, and all the rides. And you can see that this connects to the rides data set, which has ride ID, ride name, whether it's open, the wait time, and when it was last updated. All of that is in the file. What this is actually two files that are combined. So the first two are combined into a theme park list, and the second one are in the queue list. So we're actually just compressing, and we did that with PowerShell. We compressed them into two files instead of four. You can always do the four if you really want to. I just chose not to do that. So now let's move on to a quick version of the Power BI report that we made, which is right here. Now, again, what I wanted to do was build a really quick and simple Power BI report to show the data, to show that I had a good grasp of the data sets, and just to do some quick features in Power BI. The intent was not to publish this report. That will come later, but I wanted to show that the data was accessible and that it was readable by Power BI. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to recreate this page very quickly for you so you can see how to do that step by step. And then if I have some time, I think I might. If I have some time, I'm going to add a feature to this. So let's go back to this map. I'm actually going to add one feature, which is don't just save it to CSV. Let me look up the shape. We'll find that shape. Also save it to SQL Server as a table. So it might be another swim lane. It's probably going to be another swim lane right here or right next to it, where I say save it to the file system and to SQL Server, import it into a table so that I can access it a lot easier, and I actually don't have to keep the files anymore. Not everyone has SQL Server. Not everyone has a server running, even though it's free. It is very, very resource intensive. So if all you can do is write to CSVs, that's what we're doing now, but I'm hoping to add a little bit of a bonus where we export the data into SQL Server as well. All right, so let's get started with this Power BI report. I'm just going to make a brand new page right down here to the far bottom, and we'll do demo. We'll call this demo 3. Now, the first thing I did was actually get all of this data here. I'll show you how to do that really quick. If you have the CSVs in a document or in a file system, like I have it on my C drive, what you're going to do is you're going to find the directory where those files are sitting. So I'm going to use this one for my Twitch demo. I'm going to rename this file Twitch. And the one it's writing to, see, it keeps writing. It's 2:30 now. Or sorry, it's 2:31, and it just wrote another set of records at 2:30. So it's still writing to this. And that's why I always want to make sure when I'm demoing, I don't use those files. But the reality is I do want to use this file. This is the file I want to use. in my report because it's the one that keeps updating. So when you go to do this, go ahead and use the current live file. That's okay. You can also use the history file. The history file will just take a lot longer to load. So I'm going to use this _ Twitch one because it's a timestamp of what things were like at 1:50 p.m. But please, when you do this, use the queue list, the live file that keeps getting updated. First thing I'm going to do is when I have Power BI opened up just like this, I'm going to click Get Data, and then I'm going to click on text/CSV. Then I'm just going to find my file. I'm going to use the Twitch demo file, but you can use the Dean Park queue list file instead, or whatever you named your live file for queue times. And I'm just going to click Open. And immediately it's going to import everything. So we're going to use the Twitch one. And here it gives you a preview of exactly what your data looks like. Right here, you can see it. You can see the park ID, the land ID. Park ID is 6 for Magic Kingdom. You can see the land ID. This is Adventureland. This is Fantasyland. You can see the ride ID, which is right here. Here's the ride name. Here's whether or not it's open. Here's the wait time in minutes. Here's when it was last updated. And here's when I last pulled the data. So I'm just going to click load. If everything looks okay to you, especially the delimiter, see how it automatically captured the delimiter was a pipe. So it went ahead and did that for me. If yours doesn't, all you have to do is click here, go to custom and type the pipe in, or whatever you used for your delimiter. Power BI is pretty good at determining it, but just in case. Then I'm just going to click load. And you'll see here on this data pane on the far right now it's just being very slow. But if I wait a little bit and probably have another drink of water, it will actually load the file. There we go. Okay, so now that we have our Twitch file here, I'm just going to expand it and I'm going to see all that data here. Here it is, all of it. And what I like to do is I like to just slam it all into a table just to make sure it's coming in correctly. So how do I do that? Well, you have two options. You can either just drag and drop all the fields. So let's do both of those. You can just drag and drop the fields. But if you look, when I dragged and dropped that, I didn't put it in a table. It just chose whatever visual it thought it was going to do best. You can, Power BI thinks it's helping. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes maybe that is the visual you wanted, but that's not the one what we wanted. So instead of erasing it and trying again, all I have to do is take this visual, click on it, and then choose the visual that I wanted in the first place. So here I wanted a table. I'm going to switch that over to table. So you'll see it has, we're expecting a lot of records and all we see is 1. That's because it summarized the data for you. And what you want is you want to not summarize that. We're going to right click on this sum of ID and we're going to say don't summarize. And remember, these are ride IDs from our data. So I'm going to rename this to ride ID. And if it makes you more comfortable, you can actually rename it here. Even though your file is called ID, you can technically rename this to ride ID here. I'm not going to do that because I like to keep consistency from my files, but the reality is you can do that if it's easier for you to work with. Okay, so ride ID. Let's do the ride name next. There's the ride name, and I'm going to double click here and just call it ride name. There it is. Here's the land name. Land name, technically I want it to go above or to the left of the ride name, right? So I'm just going to drag it up here and just double click on this and call it land name. Land ID, we're going to put it right above land name. And look, another sum. I don't want the sum. What I want is don't summarize. Right click on that, say don't summarize. And now we have the land ID. And again, I'm not really going to show you as the user of this report. I'm not going to show you the land ID. You really probably don't care what the land ID is. You care what the land name and the ride name is. So that's how you get to save space. But I'm looking at this data and trying to just make sure it came in okay. BownerSoup said, if you had more data, you could create a ride ID and a ride as a dim table. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is kind of my fact table right now. So it has the actual data I need, right? The transactional data, which is the wait times. But all I would do is create something like this. Let's hop over to the diagram, right? And let's just do a quick fact table. So here I'm gonna add a entity in Lucidchart entity, and I'm going to pick from the entity list. Here it is right here. So we're gonna create an entity, and that entity is gonna be called queue times, right? The queue times is gonna have the ride ID, and it's gonna have, okay, let's try that again. Ride ID, and it's gonna have is open or whatever it was called, I already forgot, and the wait time. And using the ride ID, this is my fact table. Using the ride ID, I would be able to connect it to the ride dimension table. So like you said, dim rides, right? So here I would be able to say, this is the ride ID, this is the ride name, and then we can keep going here, right? Because we have lands too. Part of the data set was lands. So I can actually say land ID, and then create another dimension table called dim lands. And instead of a star schema, which would be here connected to this fact table, what we've actually immediately created is a snowflake schema instead. So we have land ID here and land name. And can we go deeper? Can we do a theme park inception here? Yes. Why? Because we can do dim parks and have a park ID and have a park name. So here, if I had a park ID in the land, I could connect it all. So let's connect it all. Queue times. Queue times is going to connect to dim rides, right? Each ride can have one or many queue times records. Depending on the file. If you're working with the live file, it can only have one record. It's very good if it only has one record. Otherwise, you're multiplying data, right? So let's pretend we're working with live data only, where there should be one record per queue time. So for each queue time, right here, for each queue time, there will be one ride and one queue time. So I have to change this out, right? I have to say one ride can have one queue time, 1-to-1. If it was historical, I would say one ride can have many queue times instead. Or I could even use the one or many. Each ride can have one or many queue times records. So let's see, 00x glitch, welcome. Thank you so much for the follow. Really appreciate you. Thanks for being here. I hope you are either learning or making fun of me and still entertained. Thanks so much. I don't know if you're into databases. Are you into data analysis? Are you into Power BI, Oracle, Crystal reports? Hopefully not Crystal reports. I don't know. If you're into Crystal reports, then you are a glutton for punishment, just like I am. Okay, so it can have dim rides or dim queue times. Let's change it back to just a one-to-one relationship, right? Because we're working with the live data. We don't work with many to many here or one to many. So each ride can have one queue time record, and then each ride belongs to one land, right? One ride cannot belong to many lands. It can't be in many different places. I'm trying to think. Unless a show goes from like one land to the other, we don't need to complicate ourselves. For the purposes of this particular project and the data set that we're working with, it doesn't, right? So it's a one-to-one from rides to lands. So here's the land ID, here's the land ID here, and it's again 1-to-1 right here, 1-to-1. And each land can only belong to one park. Each land belongs to one park. Right here, from park to park ID. Oh, I left the land ID. That's a copy pasta right there. Park ID and park name. So from park ID to park ID, there's the relationship, and it has just one-to-one. Lands to parks, one-to-one. And there we go. We can keep going for this, right? We can keep going and saying the park has a state or a company, right? The park company as well. We can actually go to two different ones. Let's say this is a location ID. This is where we can break out from 1 to 2. We have a location ID, and then we're going to add one more field here, and we're going to call this company ID. Okay, so the location ID is going to be its own table, and the company is going to be its own table. So now we have company, and we have company ID and company name, you know, like Disney, Universal, that sort of stuff. And then we're also going to have a locations. The location is going to be a location ID to define it. That's the key, or what you normally hear about of primary keys, foreign keys, surrogate keys, that sort of stuff. And then here is going to be something like state/province or state_province and country. That sort of stuff is available there. So we go from location to location, again, one-to-one. One park can technically be at different locations, but you know, like Magic Kingdom is in both Disney, California, and in Orlando. So this is where things can start to go a little bit crazy for you, and you have to know what data you're working with. So we're going to do one-to-ones right now just because that's how we want to diagram it. But there we go. There we go. A BownerSoup. Hopefully this answers your question of or you know, hopefully this elaborates on your comment, because it wasn't necessarily a question, but hopefully this elaborates, right? Here's our queue times where we're at right now. I have my data sets combined here into one file, but technically speaking, you can organize it this way. Here's my fact table, and here are all my dimension tables. I forgot the dims here. Let's put the dim really quick. And so this really wouldn't be a star schema anymore, right? This is more like a snowflake, because usually star will have like everything here, or at least as much as it can right here, and everything kind of branches out. You know, customer ID, product ID, all that stuff kind of branches out from this central table. But what we did was made, I know it doesn't look like one, but we made a snowflake schema instead. So hopefully that helps. All right, so we have our table here in Power BI. We're just going to keep adding stuff to it. Here we have even a park ID. So we have a park ID. I don't want a sum. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Oh, because it thinks it's helping. That's why it keeps doing that. I'm going to right click on it and say don't summarize. So we have park ID 6, which is Magic Kingdom in Orlando. We have our ride ID, our ride name. And then here we have our is open flag that says true or false. Is open. And we want this to be a little bit user friendly. So we're going to do something to change it, right? We want yes or no, or open/closed, right? We can do that as well. And then we have the wait time. The wait time is what we really want, right? We're gonna, instead of the sum, we don't want the sum. We're gonna right click, summarize, don't summarize, and there's the wait time. Wait time, and then I'm gonna specify this is in minutes, just so the user doesn't get confused. And then we have our data collection date. Now, this is weird. It's showing up as like year, quarter, month, and day. Sometimes you may want that. I certainly don't. So what I'm going to do is right click on the data collection date and just say data collection date instead of date hierarchy. And now we can see that the data collection date is just a simple date and time. If you want this to just be a date, that's cool too. All you have to do is click on that field, the data collection date, and go up to the very top. And just like Excel, right? If you're familiar with Excel, Power BI is going to be the same thing. So you just go to here and you say, hey, I only want to show this short date. I actually do. It's very important to show the times here, the times that I collected it, just so you know, as my client or as my user, you know that the data I'm getting for you is the latest one. So I'm going to leave that there. Here's the last updated. Same thing. It just keeps doing the date hierarchy. So I'm just going to switch it to last updated. And there we go. The last updated is from Q times the data source. This data collection date is a timestamp that I built in PowerShell to show exactly when the data is being collected. So that's really important to know. The data collection time, that's when I ran my process to collect the data. The last updated is coming from qtimes.com of when the last time they updated their data was. So that's really, really important to know. Q time last updated is what we'll name that, just so we know. And that's it. All of them are here. We can see every single one. It looks like there's a lot of repetition here. Why is that? Oh, because we're looking at the history. We're looking at the history table. The history table has everything. Oh, wow. Okay. So what do we do? What do we do? We want to make sure we're only getting the latest data, right? So this is a fun time where we're going to be able to put like a filter on the report to say, hey, only give me the latest data. We want to make sure we only get one record. By the way, I did not mean to do that. That wasn't just like a cunning way for me to segue into I wish I was that good. But the reality is I completely forgot that we were working with historical data. So it's a good thing that we ran into this, because now I can show how to properly get this data set. All right, so what we're going to do is build a slicer that shows exactly how to change this to only show the latest collection date. So here we have the last updated or the latest data collection date. You can use either one of them for this. I'm just going to try using the last updated. No, last updated is like a UDT time or Greenwich Mean Time. So I'm going to try using the data collection date, but again, you can choose whichever one you want to. The first thing I'm going to do is add this slicer right here, and I'm going to make sure I'm doing it with clicking on white space, so that, yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen. Okay. Clicking on any white space so it knows it needs to add an individual. I'll click on the slicer field right here, and it creates a big old slicer, which we don't need it to be that big. And then I'm just going to drag in my data collection date, and it shows a bunch of different dates because it knows there's a date. So it's trying to get me to choose a date. That's really not what we want. We only want to show one day at a time. We don't want to show things over time, at least not yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the formatting area in the visualizations pane for this visual, and I'm going to click slicer settings, and instead of between, I'm going to change that to a drop down. Now, first thing I could do is change this to a list just to show you exactly what I'm working with here. What I'm looking to do is build a drop down list that looks identical to this but doesn't take up as much space. That's what I need to do, and the version of that is the drop down. So the drop down looks identical, it just gets compressed. Okay, and I want to make sure that I show the user the latest time first. So how do I do that? I click on the ellipse that's on the very top right here for more options, and I say sort axis, sort descending. When you click sort descending, it's going to flip all the orders for you, and it's going to show you only the latest time. So we can see here 6:15 at 1:50 was the latest time that we had collected when we made the copy of this file. I'm going to click on that, and suddenly all my data changes to just be one record per ride, and that's exactly what we were looking for. Now, it's interesting that we have the historical data, because again, if I have time, I think I can show you how to build kind of like quick history of everything. So here it is. It's all my data for the 150 timestamp. And what if people like by mistake click multiple? We don't want that. We only want them to be able to click one per page right now. So what we're going to do is force that. In the slicer settings, again, there's a selection area. I was able to do the multiple selection by holding down control. I don't want users to be able to do that. I want to disable that, but then I also want to just completely enable single select. And now no matter what I do, you can even see that these buttons change from checkboxes to like radio buttons that only allow you to select one at a time. And when you do that, all of your data changes to be just like the one that you selected. So here we have 150, and then we see data for only 150. So that's really important. I'm going to compress this over here, make it a bit smaller, and put it in the top right corner. And then I'm just going to copy this and paste it. Control C, Control V, or you can just do your, right click copy, right click paste. I'm going to do one more that looks just like this, but I'm going to choose the ride instead. I want the ride name. So this name here, I'm going to go back to the build visual, and instead of data collection date, I just wanted to say name. Now you're going to see that it's going to show up right below it. I don't want that. I actually don't want the date at all, so I'm just going to remove the date, but I keep the formatting that I used right here. And that's a good and bad thing. If you have a lot of these to do and you perfect one with all the perfect colors, the right font size and everything, then it could benefit you. But right now, it actually made us stumble into an issue. And that issue is that I can only select one ride at a time now. That doesn't look very good. If I wanted to build like a catalog that shows like a bunch of details about the ride, maybe. But I actually want to be able to select a bunch of rides at the same time, or all rides. So I'm going to go back here just for this visual. I'm going to go back to the slicer settings, and I'm going to change the selection to turn off single select, and also make sure that control is turned off. Why? Because nobody had control on their iPad. I'm expecting people to be able to use their iPhones, their iPads for all of this, and I want to make sure that they can use that. So I'm going to also show the select all option that'll allow people to select all. So now I'll just be able to hit either select all or select none, and it'll all be there. But if I want multiple rides, like Splash Mountain and Space Mountain, because I want to go mountain climbing, which was the other one, Big Thunder Mountain, that's in the B's. If I want to go mountain climbing, I can see if I want to go mountain climbing right now, I should probably start with Big Thunder Mountain, because it's 30 minutes. Again, like we discussed earlier, Splash Mountain is just not something you're going to be able to get into right now. It's a queue system. That's why it's 0. Just like a don't even try kind of thing. There is data, it's just 0 because there's no queue. Okay, but what if we want to organize this a little bit more, right? Where I don't really have to go looking for every ride. What if I'm in a particular land? Well, the cool thing about Power BI is it allows you to do hierarchy slicers. So here I have the ride name, but I want to put the land on top of it, right? So I'm going to put the land name, I'm going to drag it right into there, and I'm going to say land name. So now the cool thing is that when I open this up, I can see all the lands. And if I want to select all the rides in that land, then I just do that. I go to Adventureland and it shows me all the rides. But if I only want to select certain rides in Adventureland, then I go in here and I either deselect all the rides like this, and I just want to see Pirates and Swiss Family Treehouse and whatever else this. Oh, Tiki Room. Of course, you got to see that. Then I can select that. But if I want everything again, I can just select Adventureland, or I can just select certain rides. So it allows you to select specific rides or entire lands. If I want, for example, I know that Adventureland is right next to Liberty Square, I can just select both of those at the same time. Now, what if I want to make it a little bit easier? Well, there's the button slicer as well. What I'm going to do is actually copy this and paste it again. Did I do that right? No, probably not. There we go. I'm going to copy this and paste it again, and I'm going to remove the ride name. I'm just going to have the lands. And since there aren't too many, I can do what's called a button slicer. Now there's 2 versions of these. The newest one is really cool, but it takes a little bit longer to set up. So I'm going to use the older one. And that older one is still this slicer. But when I go into the slicer settings, where is it? Oh yeah, in the style, I'm going to click tile. And you'll see that I can just have it across the board here. I can just have a bunch of tiles here instead. So all you have to do is click on the one that you want to see, or the ones that you want to see, instead of having to worry about this button or this list here. You can just click on these buttons, and that makes it a lot easier to use for things like phones or iPads or whatever else you like to use. Let's see. Okay. All right. So now that we have our button slicer here, and now that we have our list slicer set up, what I'm going to do is very quickly set up a heat map right here based on this wait time. So what I want to do is I want to show whether something's good or bad based on the wait time. And now in Excel, you do that with something called conditional formatting, where you tell Excel, hey, the rules are. Acaci, how you doing? Acaci says hello there. It's great to see you. Germany, I think. Are we watching from Germany? I hope you're having a good evening so far, and I hope you're just relaxing. Acaci says, "Yep, I got one. It's time to end the stream because I got something right." Acaci says, "I will try." Yeah, I hope you're chilling after I'm sure a awesome day. Hopefully you weren't working too hard. Okay, so we're gonna build this little heat map here, and I'm gonna do it right to the wait time minutes. So I'm gonna right click on wait time minutes, and I'm gonna say conditional formatting, and then I can either do the font color, I can do the background color, or I can even do icons. So, or I can do a combination of all of them. So right now I'm gonna stick with the background color because it's the most impactful, but it doesn't get too much in the way. So I'm gonna click background color and wait for Power BI to do its thing. And then the first style that comes up is gradient. That's the one. Acaci says lurking, be right back. Yeah, thank you for the lurk. I appreciate you. See you when you get back. Gradient here is the one that came up, but it is the one that we want to use. We want to use the sum or the minimum or maximum. Let's just change it up and use maximum, but we're only looking at one record anyway, so it's okay. And then we apply empty values. What do you want to apply those? I'm going to apply them at don't format, meaning I don't want to see a color if the data is not available. It's not good, it's not bad. Or you can choose a specific color to like purple, put in purple or something. But here we're going to go with a traffic light style, which is what I like to use in my normal reporting for work and really for anything. We're going to go with the lowest value is a good thing, right? The lowest value is good, so we're going to make that green. We're going to click on the color, we're going to go to the green and do like a little light nice green. This is where I turn into Bob Ross. We're going to do a nice little green over here. If you want to copy the green from somewhere like Adobe color wheel, that's a good resource to use. So Adobe's color wheel has a ton of colors. You can just copy the hex and paste it right here. The center one, I want it to be like a nice light yellow, and then the green one, or the maximum, which is bad, I want it to be like a red, but like a faint red, so you can still see the text. That would always be really good to make sure you're still seeing the text. Okay, so we're gonna click OK here. We got the middle color, we have it green, yellow, red, depending on if it's good or bad. I don't have to enter any values. In fact, it doesn't let me. I'm using the maximum of the wait time. I'm applying it to the values only, and when I click OK and cross my fingers, there we go. Now we can see the green ones are the ones that you want to go to because they have the lowest value, meaning the shortest wait. And then the bad ones, 7 Doors Mine Train, there's no surprise there. Princess Tiana though. Princess Tiana, that's probably because Splash Mountain just opened. And I mean, regardless, this experience is pretty cool. But unfortunately, it's gonna take you 50 minutes to wait for Princess Tiana or to meet her. So you better have the intentions of truly meeting Princess Tiana right now, because you're gonna be waiting almost an hour. Peter Pan's Flight, 45 minutes. That's no surprise. Space Mountain, 45 minutes as well. I want to watch this one. See if it's green. I want it to be green. Splash Mountain has 0 though, and we know that that's not really true, so we're just kind of mentally ignore that one. But the reality is, if it's 0, maybe we want to treat it a specific way, right? So what do? Well, we're gonna go back to the wait time and right click it and go to conditional formatting again and go to icons instead. Okay, we're gonna go to icons, and in icons I want to say, based on the rules, I want to apply to the values only, and I want to say, hey, if the minimum or maximum, the same thing we use for the color, if it is 0, then pop something up. So if the value is 0 and then we switch this to a number and less than 1, I think I could just switch this to equals, right? Yeah, there it is, to equals 0. If the value is 0, then we'll choose like a this is probably not a good one. Yeah, like that. If the value is 0, then just put a red X there. That's it. And we hit OK. And now we can see like, hey, don't even worry about this, just ignore it. But the reality is we can also use another column to see whether or not we should ignore it. Because the reality is this one, the Hall of Presidents is open, but it's 0. So this is actually, we shouldn't be using 0, this whole thing for it, right? What we should be using is something completely different. If it's not open, that's where I want to pop it. That's why I want to pop that X there. So let's go ahead and remove the conditional formatting from the wait time. We're going to right click and we're going to say remove conditional formatting icons. The background we can keep, but the icons we want to take away. So the whole is open thing, I want to switch it from true to like yes or no, right? So that's going to be pretty easy. What I'm going to do is go to the is open column, which we don't see here, but it's because I renamed it for this grid. So you're going to want to find that column, which you can always do by just hovering over and seeing which one it is. So here I can see the pop-up that came up says is underscore open. I'm going to go straight to that column and I'm going to, or actually I'm not going to go to that column. I'm going to right click on the data set itself, right click, and I'm going to say new column. For the new column, I'm going to wait for it to show up. And then if you're familiar with Excel, again, you're going to see something very similar to Excel. And it's going to show up at the top. It's going to be a formula bar. And here I'm going to say is open. And then I'm going to say something like friendly or user or simple. You know, you can name it whatever you want. You can name it Bob, as long as you can keep track. It's okay with me. Okay, is open friendly is going to equal, and then we're going to use DAX, which is Power BI's formatting and data analysis expression language, I think is what it stands for. And we're going to say if is open, there it is right there, and I hit tab to auto complete it when it shows up in the IntelliSense. If is open equals true, then yes, else no. And I'm going to be a little bit better organized. I'm going to hold shift to move this down to the next line, go here and move it down as well. And here I'm going to write comments and just say evaluate whether the is open is true, and then if true, then display yes, close those comments because I never do. And then here, if false, then display no. Or should we just display open and closed? Is that better? Yeah, let's be very, let's leave no doubt, right? Open, closed. Let's just display it that way, okay? And that's it. You just use an if statement to analyze this, and if it's open, we display open. If not, then it's closed. It's that simple. We're gonna click the check mark, wait for it to do its thing. The end of the input was reached. It looks like something went wrong here. I think I have an extra parentheses. Oh no, look, I forgot to close my comment. I literally just said that I forget to close my comments and then I did it. So now I have to remove this parentheses and click the check mark to commit it, and we should be good. There we go. Now the column popped up, just called is open friendly. I like to at least name it something similar so it shows up right next to it and you don't have to go hunting. I'm gonna add that right underneath is open. And we can see whenever it's true, it's open. Whenever it's false, I put close. And that means what? That means I don't need this one anymore, right? That means I don't need this other icon or this other issue anymore here. This other column. So I'm going to remove it. I'm not removing it from the entire data set, just from this grid. That's it. Okay. And now, whenever it's closed, that's what I want to do. Open. I'm going to rename this to open/closed. or rename it to status. Maybe status is a better one. Status is open or closed. I'm going to right click on status. I'm going to do conditional formatting of icons, and whenever status is closed. Notice how this stuff changed a little bit now because it's not numbers and it's text. It's literally just asking us. So we can do status is closed, and then if it's like open, we can technically put like a green light or something like that, but the reality is that'll make you still dig too much. I only want to let people know when there's bad news, right? That means we don't get complacent. So I'm going to apply the rules to the values only and analyze the first is open, and say to the left of the data, I want to display a particular icon. And we're going to say when it's closed, I'm going to pop that X there, right there. Remove everything else and then hit OK. And now we can easily see when something's closed right here. So the next thing I want to do very quickly is move this down a little bit and just put some numerical graphics of number of rides open, number of rides closed, right? So we're going to do that really quick. To do that, we're going to pop into some empty space and we're going to create something called a card right here. We're going to move this to the top left, and then we're going to display just number of IDs. So I'm going to drag the ID here and I'm going to say the sum of ID. No, I want to count the unique IDs. I'm counting the unique IDs. So there's 41 total rides that I'm displaying. So I'm just going to call it rides, 41 rides. And then I'm going to change this to be a smaller value because we want to take back some real estate. So I'll go to the callout value and say it's 20 instead. And then the callout label, I want to put something smaller like 8. So now we have 41 rides here. And since they're not big numbers, maybe I'll put this to like 10 instead. There we go. That looks a little bit better. I'm going to copy and paste that visual. And now its total rides is 41. But here, I'm going to say open rides instead. Now, how do I filter it to be open rides without affecting anything else, right? What I do is I go to the visual itself, and then I pop over to the filters area here. In the filters, I'm going to pick the is open friendly, and I'm going to put it right here, drag it there, and then I'm just going to click on the open. And now it shows me that 40 rides are open. So I need to rename this to rides open or open rides. And then here, technically speaking, I can copy this and paste it, put it right next to it, and change this filter to what? To closed. And then I can rename this to closed rides. Okay, and now I can say how many lands as well. I'm just going to copy it because I have the formatting down. Why do that? Is there anything? What about average wait time? That's a good one. I think average wait time in minutes is a good one. Let's do that instead because that's probably more important, right? So we're going to do wait time. We're going to drag it in here in the place of closed rides. We're going to say wait time. And then instead of the sum, I don't want the sum. I want right click and average of wait time. Oh, and why is it 0? Oh, it's because I'm only filtering on the close. Remember, because I copied the visual, it kept the filter. So we don't want to do that. We want to remove the filter altogether. And now we can see that the average wait time is 18.54 minutes. So I'm going to close this again. I'm going to say AVG wait time minutes. And there we go. Now we have the average wait time in minutes. So one of the other things I want to do really quick is just do a quick visual. Now that I have all this, I can remove the park ID, right? Nobody cares. I can remove the land ID. I can remove the ride ID and just keep the important stuff. The ride name, the status, the wait time, and when I last updated. And that's it. Now we have a little bit more room. I'm going to actually make this even smaller so I can have some room here on the right, and then we'll create a quick graph, and then we'll do some styling, and then we'll be out because I'm getting hungry. All right, so to create the graph just like we have it, I could just copy and paste these graphs, but I want to show you exactly what I do. So let's do a wait time by ride graph. Okay, the wait time by ride is going to show a bar, and I like to make sure that bars are horizontal instead of vertical unless I'm specifying time. If I'm doing something over time, then yes, of course, I can do it vertically, but otherwise I like to do them horizontal, so there's no implication, and there's, like, the time is not implied. This has nothing to do with time other than the fact that we're displaying wait time, right? It's not an overtime thing. It's not a progressive thing. So what we're gonna do is click on this stack bar chart right here, which is the vertical one, or sorry, the horizontal one. That's really important. We're gonna update it, and then we're gonna say, I want the wait time to be the, what is it, x-axis, and I want the name to be on the y-axis. So there it is right there. And you can see that a lot of the ones are cut off. What we're gonna do is actually extend this out so that it looks a little bit nicer. We're gonna go to the format visual, and then up here, I never know what this is, so I'm just gonna go to the search bar up here. I'm gonna type width, and here the value is maximum width. I'm gonna extend it all the way out, and here we can see that it extended it all the way out so that most of it is showing. Here, maybe I'll move it a little bit left. Nope, and it looks like that's just not happening, right? So maybe I can change the font size. If I go over here, I can change the font size of, what is the y-axis, to be a little bit lower, like that. Nope, even then it didn't. So I'm just going to change the title here. You can either rename it here, or I'm just going to make it down here. If you look, it's actually dynamic. Sum of wait time by name. So I'm going to right click on this sum, and I'm actually going to make it the maximum. And then here you'll see that the title changed. So what I'm going to do is just rename this to wait time, and then it says wait time by name. So I'm going to rename name to ride, and bam, now we have wait time by ride. I didn't have to change the title, I just needed to change the fields inside of there. If you needed to say something specific, that's absolutely fine, and you can change the title, no problem. But I like to do this here because just in case I add something else like is open, I could just rename this to status, and look, now my title gets renamed to wait time by ride and status. So that's a little trick there. You don't have to do that, but I like to leave it as dynamic as possible. Okay, so we said we wanted to mimic the other one, and if you look, the other one has the wait time of a heat map. So that's what we're going to do right here. We're just going to try to alter the color to be a specific color depending on how long the wait time is. So what I like to do is click on the visual itself, go to formatting, and then we're going to go to bars. In the bars area, we can see that there's a color field. You don't have to change the color manually. You can just click on this FX or function or conditional formatting and set it up the exact same way, right? So we're going to do the same exact thing we just did. Max of wait time. We do not want to format the ones that have 0 or empty values, or sorry, the ones that have empty values only. We're going to add a middle color and do the same stoplight configuration. The traffic light, green, then yellow, and then bad is red. So that's all you have to do. Add the middle color. You don't even have to add the middle color if you don't want to. I just like to do it because it's a traffic light configuration. So that's it. I hit OK, and you can see that the red is the highest wait time, and if you keep scrolling, it goes down to green and even nothing. And then it shows you the bar just so you can see the maximum wait time is about 60. But I'm asking myself, how do I just display the time without having to hover over? Because you're on your phone, you just want to be able to see the number of minutes, right? Well, the way you do that is you go back to the formatting again, and you hit data labels, and you just click and turn them on, and there they are right there. You don't have to do anything else unless you want to do like a little bit of a background like this. If you want to change the layout a little bit, that's cool as well, but I just like to keep it as simple as possible. And now what I want to do is show the latest, or the top 10 quickest waits by ride. Now, how is that? Okay, how do we do that? How is that an extension of this one? Well, if we copy this and just paste it right below, it looks identical. But if I only want the top 10, and again, the top 10 is actually the best ones. I don't want to know which ones are the worst. This is not a negative report. I want to be able to show people what rides they should be jumping on right now, right? So first thing I'm going to do is, after I copied it over, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to the filters area. Now in the filters area, I'm going to filter the ride, and I'm going to click right here in the basic filtering and say top N. So I want the top 10 rides by a value, by the wait time. I'm going to drag that in here. Okay. And then I'll hit OK. And look what happened. It's showing me the top 10, but it's showing me the worst. And again, I don't care about the worst. I just want to show the best ones. So what do we do? First, I'm going to change this to maximum of wait time instead of some, even though it really doesn't make any difference. But what do? I did the top 10. How do I reverse this order? Simple. When you go to show items, you just click bottom 10. And when you apply that filter, it reverses itself. Now everything looks red because 5 minutes is the worst. It's the highest. Okay, so what we want to do is we actually want to change the color scheme of this to be green and blue. So I go to the bars area again. I go to the color, and here we have the eraser. I don't want to erase, I just want to change it. So I'm going to change this from green to light blue to dark blue. Hit OK. There we go. And there we go. It's all set. Okay, so I was gonna go to some design tricks, but I think I'm really hungry and I want to eat lunch with my daughter, so I'm gonna leave it here. Excuse me. In case you didn't know, I'm asthmatic. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it here. I hope this was informational. I hope you got as much out of this as I intended. But I'm gonna go cover my asthma attack and make sure I'm okay, and then eat with my daughter. So I'm gonna go chill. I appreciate everyone here hanging out. Thanks so much. I appreciate any new follows I got. Acaci, thank you for hanging out. Rod, thank you for hanging out. ElementFuture, thanks so much. And I will see you next time. Thanks for joining.